I'm TJ, Chief Data Officer at Trupanion. Trupanion is a company that does medical insurance on cats and dogs, and which is great. It gives us lots of excuses to fill our presentations with cute dog and cat pictures, so I hope you're ready. So just to get started, I'm going to talk a little bit about just an overview of the company and our team, and specifically talk about those things for context and where we're coming from. And then we're going to get into a particular project that we dove into, and then learnings from that project. And I've been thinking over the course of the yesterday and today in some of my conversations with people about this talk, and I've come to realize that the topic is pretty broad and means different things to different people. So specifically what we're talking about today is Trupanion's entry into having production data science and what that meant for aligning with IT to get that launched both as a specific initiative and as a discipline going forward. To start, a little bit about Trupanion. It started in Vancouver in 2000, came to the US in 2008, took on venture capital. I joined in 2009, so been there for about 10 years, watched it go from about 15 people to north of 500. I'm guessing probably 8 million in annualized revenue at the time. We went public in 2014, and we have, the number up there is over 400,000 pets enrolled. For context, there's about 180 million cats and dogs in the US and about 15 million in Canada, so we're still just scratching the surface. And then I listed two aspects of the company that I wanted to highlight. One, because they're things that we're proud of, and also because they are pretty key in explaining where we come from as a company, so and specifically with respect to using data. So the first is that we have no payout limits, no cap of $10,000 per year, no hereditary and congenital limits that say this breed tends to get this, so we're not going to cover it. And what that meant is that all of the risk that an insurance company is going to be exposed to by having a product like that is really borne by the actuarial team. And so we've had a really robust, especially relative to our size, actuarial discipline early on, because we need to have this really very complicated structure that, for one thing, convinces us that we can take on those potentially outsized risks that we're exposing ourselves to. And then also having that really, really granular level of specificity in how we price, because we need, we're pricing across 400 breeds with maybe 5x difference in costs. We're exposed to all of those risks. We're exposed to the variances in cost of care region by region. So it really forced us as a company to bring in data experts and actuarial experts to be able to price and manage this product, because we really designed the product to be the way we want, which is to have no limits. The second is a product called Trupanion Express, which is a software that we developed, which is deployed onto veterinarians' computers and integrates with their practice management system. And we did that in order to really change the experience. So a traditional pet insurance really works the same way ours does, where you're paying a monthly premium and you're getting your veterinary care covered. And the traditional model works where you go in and you pay your full amount. If that's a surgery, it might be $5,000. And then you go home, you fill out some paperwork, you send it to the insurance company, you wait for reimbursement. And we really wanted to change that customer experience and have it be, you go in and you only come out of pocket for what you owe. And in order to do that, we've developed this connection to the veterinary computer so they can create an invoice, instantly submit it to us, and then we tell them immediately, our standard has been within 5 minutes, here's how much we're going to pay, now collect the rest from the pet owner. So that's really cool from a customer experience standpoint relative to the traditional model, but of course that creates a huge operational burden for us to staff up and be able to turn around claims within 5 minutes. It's a big data challenge for us to be able to provide that information. And then one of the consequences of that is the traditional model was that information tended to be faxed in, because that's the world we live in, and show up as a PDF image or something like that. And now we're receiving that information digitally, so we can actually work with that data, invoices in the form of data, in a way that we hadn't been able to do before. So that's a little bit about what we're doing as a company. these are some of our colleagues who are in our office in Seattle. But our data analytics team is really in sort of 3 pillars. So it really started out of business intelligence. That's kind of my background, accounting and finance, and then actuarial science, and then I play in the shallow end of actually doing data science things. So our discipline really started in business intelligence and being able to provide information around the organization, and then building out the actuarial team and having a lot of connection there, where our business intelligence team is actually often manned by actuaries who are doing, occasionally more sophisticated things and more probabilistic things like identifying customer churn, things like that. And then the third sort of leg of our stool is our data science team. And one thing that I think is important on our journey is that when we did not start by hiring a data scientist, let's say. Hired somebody as a business intelligence analyst who I selected because he happened to have a lot of experience in machine learning. And we were able to sort of pitch where we're going to create this data science team together. But it wasn't done as a matter of shooting off fireworks and saying, now we have a data science discipline. It was really this ground, grassroots effort from within our business intelligence team to start applying some data science. And this is something that I've shared with quite a few outside parties when we're talking about what we're doing as an organization, that at no point have we done that big announcement, hey, the CEO or myself read in a magazine that there's some new AI stuff coming, so I want a piece of that. It really was a matter of, we already have this business intelligence team. There's a really strong data discipline within the company where there's an appetite for using data. There's a demand from the CEO that people are using data to make decisions. We're the ones who are providing that. And now that these new techniques are available, these new machine learning and data science techniques are available to us, now we're going to be able to take this discipline we already have and layer these techniques on top of it and do even better. So it's really important for us, and I think it's contributed to our success, that it's been really an evolution of a pre-existing data discipline rather than something we're trying to introduce cold. And then additionally, we already had that reputation with a lot of our business units, and especially when we were hiring data scientists who started by just providing descriptive data for these different business units. They then were more introduced to what the needs are. So I feel like it really helped our data science team get started in a really good way, because we didn't have some of these things that have been brought up in terms of just creating a project that wasn't actually going to be meeting the needs of the operational teams. We had a really strong sense of what those operations are, where their pain points are, so we were able to introduce things that really addressed those. So as just a little bit of a summary of the context, our experience in getting to where we are is that we really had a data culture to begin with, and really focused on providing service to the organization, build up some of that political capital that we've been talking about. Doesn't need to be quite so Machiavellian. I prefer to describe it as relationship building, but either way, we provide that level of service so that we have that reputation. So when we start bringing in more projects, then there's more inclination to participate. And then, of course, that leads to organizational buy-in. So then let's talk about the project that really got us kicked off. And so it started, once again, not out of a ideation process where we decide on a thing and then acquire resources and do it in a very structured way. It started off as a totally different project, and that was actually for the quality assurance process on our claims team. And so ultimately it became a project around trying to automate our claims process. But where we started was really just trying to do QA. And where it came from was looking at some of the existing quality assurance reports, identifying certain areas where people are tending to make errors. And then, hey, can we come up with a series of rules to identify those and then run that as a batch at the end of each day and correct things before checks go out the door? That was the original project. And so some of those were pretty straightforward, simple business rules, things like that. And some of them did require some machine learning. And so a lot of those early sort of batch exercises. We had just recently gotten started with Data Robot, and that was a really great way for our data science team of one to spin up a lot of these ideas and get them in place for us to be able to run a lot of these different scenarios and be able to check them. And it turned out to be really successful. We did find errors or inconsistencies and had the opportunity to correct them. That added a lot of added tangible value to the project that we were doing, which really helped again in that sort of political capital. And so we iterated that on a few times, so we figured out we could identify claims at risk of this error and this error and this error, and as we put all of those together, we got to the point where, hey, we can actually simulate the entire claims process. So as part of the QA check, we learned with the data that we were getting, we could do a pretty strong job of identifying, run through post hoc, here's what the algorithm would have said that this claim should be paid out as. You did this, and then we flag it for additional review. And so once we had that in place, which was sort of the most sophisticated of this QA process, then it took us down the road of, okay, now that we've shown that we can do all of that, we have shown that we have that level of predictive power, now we should turn around and talk about how to do it prior to a human touching it rather than doing it after. So by this point, it was probably a year from when we first started that, we did sort of 4 different checks, and then 8, and then 12, and then ultimately this. And so we had it running in place.